Set Life. I'm Amber Buto, and this is
Kelly Leger.
And we are sitting with Orlando, and I'm going to let you say it.
Briones.
Briones.
Yeah.
Yes. What an honor it is to sit with you today. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us.
For sure. Thank you for inviting me. Pretty exciting.
Set Life is all about, friends hanging out on set, behind the scenes. I mean, just before we started rolling cameras, we were all sitting here just chit-chatting, and we're like, wait. This is too good. Save it. This is what we want to see. This is what we want to do.
Pre-roll.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's the idea, right?
Yep.
Our friendships we've made in the industry, the excellence that you've created in the industry, sharing that, it's all of our hearts. As we were all sitting here talking before we started rolling, is like, okay, first question we ask a lot on Set Life is, how did you get into the industry? Where did you start? How did you start? Because a lot of our passions are to give back, because we didn't have that when we started. It's super hard in our industry to sit with an expert that will guide you, mentor you, talk about stories, give you advice on where to start, what to start with in their stories. So that's a big part of our heart here, and we want to share stories like yours. So we're going to start with the same question we were just talking about. How did you get into this industry? What was your draw and passion? And
well, the way that I started was actually when I was 16, I started doing anything other than film. So I was doing graphic, web design, print. And I swore that I was going to go to school for learning how to do video. I always had that mindset of when I would see an image, I wanted to know what happened before and what happened after.
Right.
Like I wasn't satisfied with just that one image. And I went to U of H and I went to the media production program. I learned a lot there, but really I learned more from being a work study, like having to fix everyone's problems and fix projects that were gonna that were just not working, or they lost their tape and I had to like help them fix that.
Problem
solving, having to solder lights and stuff that students would break, new people, they like torquing everything and destroying stuff. It's easy. It comes with so learning and seeing all that, that kind of helped me out. So once I graduated, in quotations graduated, I walked, still waiting for my diploma, but I walked and they loved me over there. I always go back and share, all this with them, and they've been great to me. But after that, I found myself, I wanted to do TV production, and I was like, I'm going to be in TV. And then I saw what they were paying for TV at the time. This is 2009 ish. And I was like, so if I freelance, I can get up whenever I want and I can do this. And I don't have to go in at dead eye, come in at 11 p.m. and you leave at 5 a.m., when you're working the first shifts, when you're starting in that career in TV. Right. And I was like, okay. And if I work a little bit harder, I can probably hit the same salary. And luckily I had my wife, she just kind of supported me through the beginning of that. And, made her, make a lot of dumb decisions, like buying a red camera. That was, I'm sorry. But that all kind of helped me get into, being the guy behind the camera. Everyone that would, at that time, I just wanted to be a director. Like I wanted to direct. But for some reason, people were like, hey, do you think you can, film this for me? And, I'm directing. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. And, little by little, I started focusing more on the director of photography stuff and all that. And as I started, especially here in Houston, it's a small community. At that time, everything was very broadcast based, very 3-point lighting. And so I looked at it as I tried to, do that. I hate this term, but the 30,000 foot view, they say, and looked at the whole market as a whole and said, where do I fit in, or where could I make my own strides and figure that out? And I started going after, single point lighting and being more a little abstract with it, and doing heavy motion. Like I know the scene doesn't call for me doing a Michael Bay 360 shot, but let's do it because no one else is doing it. If let's do it to the extreme, because I can always dial it back. And little by little, those kinds of things started to really pop off, and it just worked out. And luckily it caught some people's eyes, and little by little they started. But yeah, and so when I was starting in the industry, that's what it was. I was like, let me try to find a way where I can, fit into all those things.
Yeah.
There wasn't, it was Craigslist, back then, and it was like,
oh my gosh,
try to find a job or try to find somebody. Hey, I need this kind of. Yeah, you can believe that.
Sent out. I mean, I used to send out hundreds of emails a day looking for work back in the day.
Yeah, and when we're in Houston, and it's one of those things where you don't find a lot of these productions, and you jump into that industry, and you're like, man, there's a lot of crazy people here, So dialing back and like, from that point on, just trying to be very strategic on like what work I do, what I take on. But yeah, I mean, starting in the industry, you kind of just had to figure it out yourself, and luckily it worked out. Worked out for me. But and it's worked out. But even now.
Do you think that not having maybe necessarily a traditional route with the mentor and the whole, do you think that ultimately was good for you because of what it stirred in you, or how do you like the way you came up with it all?
Well, I think I've always had just in general an issue with authority. I can still think back to like when I was little and the bus driver was like yelling at me, and I was like, man, you're not a teacher. and
you're just a bus driver.
Yeah, you're just a bus driver. And then the bus driver like stopped at my house and said, tomorrow you cannot get on this bus until you bring your father. And I was like, oh man. No. So then I bring my dad, and my dad's like, this man is working. He's working, and you need to understand that you need to respect this man. And that was the biggest, wake up call ever. So I always had an issue with authority just in general. And, but I also understood that, there are some authorities and things that you should respect. But in thinking about how I came up in this, I found out that I just had to make mistakes, and I had to learn from them. And that's it. Since I didn't have anyone tell me like, hey, you should probably get an LLC, or hey, if you don't file an LLC, if you're not paying your taxes or whatever, you're gonna get in trouble for it. Yeah. And those are things that in my culture and the way I grew up,
you don't know.
We don't know anything about that. You know, you just know you get a check. There's taxes there. You file your taxes, and sometimes you get money back. Sometimes you don't. That's all we know. And so having to learn that as like a business entrepreneur and all those things, like, I don't know if it changed anything. It just made me be a lot more, I have to really feel people out and figure out if I want to work with these people or not. And, it also made me very cautious of like who I work with and what jobs I take. And no matter how great it looks on its face, we're in Hollywood, we're in, the film industry. Our whole job is that, you know?
Correct.
So it just doesn't matter. Those things don't faze me. So not having like a proper mentor or anyone else that I can, learn from just made me understand that I have my own path, and I'm making my own footprints, and that's what it is.
Your statement, knowing you outside of this moment, we're all learning about you. Your heart to give back is so great, and I love that about you. And we've talked a lot about workshops, and when you were talking about, what you didn't know that you wish you could have known, or somebody showed you or whatnot. That's part of why you want to do these workshops, why you want to promote things where you can walk people through like, hey, this is what I learned along the way. And if I can share that back to you to cultivate the next generation, to cultivate this industry and the creatives coming up in it, I think it's just such a great thing. I think it's such a beautiful thing to give back from your experiences and not become a victim of like, well, I didn't have it, so you go figure that out. It's like, I didn't have it and I wish I would have. And so here, come to a workshop, come learn from my experience. Let me give back to you, and those.
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, you don't have to, right? Like you can stay in your bubble and you can be successful and do all that. That's completely fine. But yeah, I found that if I did have that, asking if, do I know if it would have changed anything? If there was even those resources for me to go learn, I probably would have been further in some things. I also say like maybe if I would have gone to LA and not stayed in Houston, I would have been a lot further in my cinematographer career, just because there's so much more work out there and being able to live there. And even if I'm taking a $250 DP job, on a 30-day feature in LA, at least I live there, right? And then those people are connected to you don't know who, but all of a sudden you did that and you have a variety piece on you, and all that stuff helps in the long run. But doing it from Houston, doing it from here, and doing these workshops and giving people the access to you in some way, you know, it makes people really like follow you and want to see you succeed, right?
Yeah.
There's like the personality, they're seeing it, you know, and I think that's important. And ultimately all my workshops, I make it very, very simple. It's all about helping you be decisive, and, you know, you have to make a decision, and you have to, you know, do I want this light? Do I not want this light? Do I want this lens? Do I not want? Do I want this person here or that? And for the most part, like even in my cinematography career, you know, I was put with a lot of novice directors, and I'm the guy that helps you T-ball. And I put the ball exactly where you need to be, and you can hit it. You'll hit a home run, or it might be a grounder, but you'll make it across, you know, and that's what I'm there for. That's so it's worked out very well in that. And that's what I expect for the workshops. And I've seen so many companies and people come out from that, and people who had like literally maybe 3,000 followers on Instagram after they take what we do, like they have 100,000 followers now, just some of the tips I gave them, and they did them better than I did, you know, and it's awesome to see that. It's awesome to see that.
You know what I like? I mean, I love that you hit on that. You said you're teaching people to be decisive, because ultimately, like as I've been a director for a couple decades now, and I try to tell people on set, that's all I'm doing is I am making choices all day. I'm answering questions and I'm making choices. I'm talking to department heads, or I'm talking to actors. That is what I'm doing all day. Is I'm making a choice, you know. And you have, in fact, what's the one of the compliments in Hollywood? They're always telling people, "Hey, you made great choices." Because there was like that cinematographer, that producer, that actor could have made a lot of choices, but they chose this path. They made that choice. You have to do that. You have to be direct. You have to do it, especially on a 10-hour production day. You got to make a choice, and you got to move on. You got to get to the next thing.
Yeah, and the thing about that is like, okay, maybe the choice was wrong. And you live with it. And you do it something else.
That's
and
true.
that's
good.
That's all that we can really strive for, you know, but you know that you like, I got to live with it. It just is what it is, and you move on. So
it's art.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that is the beauty of this is it's art. So let's say I'm going to go paint even an image that I'm looking at. The way in which I see that and paint it is my way, right? With my capabilities. So of course I'm going to make mistakes the first time I paint it. You know, so will everybody else. Our mistakes look differently, but sometimes those translate into beauty.
Totally.
Right.
And it becomes somebody's flavor of what they see is like, whoa, that's so great. And that's why I think when what we do, you can't be afraid of making mistakes. Ultimately, you're creating, and you can get better, and you can refine your creativity, but you don't know that until you start creating.
That's right.
What was the painter? What's the old school dude with the fro? Bob Ross.
Oh, Bob Ross. Yeah.
he always said happy accidents, no mistakes, happy accidents. Because everybody's going to read a script and see something different.
That's right.
Everybody's going to have a different vision for it. Is one bad over the other? It's just different. You know. So
Agreed.
I love it.
Agreed. So okay, so you got in. Did you buy a camera, rent a camera? How did you get to where you were like, okay, I want to do this. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to work at this. I'm going to get on different TV sets and stuff. What was the point where you were
I'm just going to say, like, I mean, for those of you who don't know, company Filmatic.
Filmatic.
I mean, he is a full-on producer, cinematographer.
Yes, this is so great. This is so great.
That's just called cinematographer personality for days. I'm just going to say.
Yes, for sure.
But like he's got somewhere, you know, from where he was. Like, I mean, I've used him multiple times for different productions. If you're in the Houston community, then you have too, more than likely. So, you know, just to give some perspective on what we're talking about,
where we're going,
here.
where he started and where he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, when I started, I thought the first thing I needed to do was buy a camera, which, you know, my poor wife made her, you know, get out a loan. And I told her this is the camera that's going to change my world, and it's going to, you know, it's going to do everything for us. You know, I felt like DJ Khaled, you know, he was like, this is the one, you know, it's like another one. But no, it was just one of those things where I was like, yeah, this is it. And I realized people started hiring me for the camera, not for me, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we made a mistake and bought this red camera back then, Red 1 MX. It was the, you know, massive camera.
Red 1, yeah.
We used to have 2 ice packs for it. One was for your shoulder and one's for to leave on top of the camera because it got so hot. Yeah, I mean, it was fun when we had it because it was the premiere thing and it was great. And after a while, I realized that people were hiring me for the camera. So they're like, "Hey, can you come and babysit your camera?" But you weren't shooting with it. They're paying me for the camera, and I was literally like, "I'm not going to let this camera out my sight. You know, I don't want anything to happen. It's literally going to change my life. You know." Right. And sure enough, it didn't. You know, but I found, you know, it like I said, you have to make mistakes, right? And I found that a camera won't change your life. They're just tools, you know. So what I ended up doing was a couple years later, I did a demo reel. I think this was 2013, 2015. I'll share that with you. And that was one that I released that I said, okay, for 2013 to 2014, I'm going to shoot with any camera. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
Just let me pick the lenses and, you know, let me do what I do. And when I released that one, I said, this reel was shot with 12 different cameras. And if you can pick one out, you know, then you know what you're doing.
Right.
And when people saw that, they're like, red. I was like, nope, that was Canon. Wow. That was this, that was that. And people were just like, how did you make everything look like that? And I was like, I have no idea. But it opened it up to where like my rate went from like $250 a day to $750 a day. You know, it was just like, it just went up and people just kind of like, okay, so it's not the camera that was making him. It's his eye. It's the talent behind him.
So good.
And that's what kind of helped me get to that polished type of feel and all that. And after that, you know, it was convincing. Even then, it was convincing. Like now, I don't really own cameras. I do have a red Komodo that I personally own, but just happened off of a project that I had, flipped some money, blah, blah, blah. I was able to get a camera out of it. Okay, it worked. Right. It worked out. But I have investors now. You know, they a really good friend of mine was like, "Hey, I have 150,000. Like, what can we do with that?" And I was like, "We can look at the market, see what it is. I can find things under market value. Hopefully, try to grab them for you. So, you know, you're getting a camera that's at 65% of the value as opposed to 80%. And hopefully we get some rentals and you'll already be on top." And sure enough, like that's what happened. You know, we got, you know, almost all my cameras that are in there. I call them mine. I have silent partners. They're great people and I make the money, you know, so it just works out. So I have a bunch of equipment, Arri Alexas, and we have Komodos and a bunch of other cool toys, Cook lenses, and a bunch of other things, but I don't own them. I'm not, you know, I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. I can't, I don't want to put my own money into those things myself. And,
you wised up. I mean, that was smart. I don't know a lot of people do it. I mean, I know tons of cinematographers throughout LA, and I don't know that version of it, though. Yeah, no, that's really cool. It's different. Yeah. And a lot of people, you know, now it's so different, you know, from 10 years ago where I was like, man, maybe someday will give me $10,000 to make a film, you know. I've had a lot of people offer me quite a bit of money to make films, but I have to do the market research. I have to, it all has to make sense. You're pioneering some stuff, man, to be honest with you. Like, did you see that model before where you had investors buying into cameras or did you just like stumble into that?
No, I stumbled into it with another good friend of mine that they started a company called DroneWorks. I've been working with them forever. They did like high-end, like a lot of our high-end drone shots that we had back in the day, all was manual. We're using heavy lifters, meaning they're the size of literally all of us sitting here together. And all the Octos and the crazy stuff. And, you know, flying those at 60 miles per hour and doing that. But there's something that he showed me about cars, like how cars work and how some people, they buy them as just investments, drive them. If you hold them for a certain amount, you can still flip them. You can put 5,000 miles on them and you can still flip them for more. And depending on how the current market is, good example, G-Wagon right now. 3 years ago was 120,000. I knew that because it was the exact price that I bought my house for like 10 years ago. But right now it's double the price. So and it doesn't matter the miles. So you totally could have driven that car, bought it at 110,000, driven it however much you wanted, do whatever you want, and it's still, even if you do the low value, sell it for 150, you made money.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, there's a model to this. How can I do it to cameras and other high-end gear where they're afraid of the housing market and different things like that? They're like, I can throw 150,000 and hopefully get back my money. If your first check you get back is 40 grand, you're already winning.
Dude, hustler. I like you. I knew I liked you. Orlando G-Wagon. Come on.
Yeah, I don't have one. I love it. I don't know if I even want one, but you know.
Still, it's just the idea of how you're thinking about it. So
they're tools.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like you made yourself. So you were talking about this. You made yourself valuable. Right. You know, I mean, you recognize people were renting the gear, the equipment. A lot of people might have been satisfied with that, but you made yourself valuable. Yeah, that's something.
And the whole thing about it is that I'm not even after the money. Like, money is so secondary to me that, you know, I'll pass on jobs. I can tell you a ton of them that I've passed on for where people are fighting to get these jobs. I just walk away from them. And the thing is that, you know, money just doesn't matter. And do you need it to survive? Absolutely. Sure. You know, I'd love to have legacy money where I know my kids and their kids will be great for days. I'd love that, but I just don't want to live for that, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, when I go into these things, you know, a lot of people would say, okay, I'm going to come out and be a cinematographer for $1,500, and that includes my cameras and lights and all that stuff. Yeah. I was like, okay, so your camera's worth $10,000 and your light's worth $5,000, so that's 15 grand that's worth. So if you do that, you're renting all that out for 10%. Okay, well, what are you worth?
Yeah.
And that was the question. And a lot of people are like, I can't answer that. And I said, you know what? I've always taken my gear away from my rate.
That's good.
You know? And so my rate has always been insane. And when people ask me for the rate, and I dedicate this portion to my brother, the way he said, I'm going to make $1 million burger shop one day. And I was like, what, like, who's going to do that? He's like, no, I just need one person to buy it. Just one person buys it, and then I can close up, and then whenever I need money again, I'll open it up again.
Open another
and the millionaire will come in and tell me, like, I don't know if it's worth $1 million, but yeah, that's cool. With tip. And then you close up. And I was like, yeah, you can be the $1 million, you know, DP. You know, just be the person that charges it. If someone sees it, if they understand the value, and they're like, if they see it and they even think you're underbidding yourself, then that's even better because they're going to treat you like royalty.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened in, you know, these past years or so, that all the sets that I'm on, it's very like, they're absolutely excited that you're there. You know, it's they're looking at you with smiles. What do you need? What does your team need? What do you know, it's not like, hey, I hired you, I need you to shoot this. And it's none of that because I'll give you your money back right away.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time, but like, you know, when we're looking at different projects, and I am always people over equipment. And you know, there's equipment that you would like to have, that you prefer to have. You have your, you know, you can go down the list, you start here. But for me, oftentimes I'm like, you know, I remember doing a project recently. It was a smaller budget deal for an agency. And I said, okay. I started thinking about, well, what do I really need more than anything? And my first go-to was, I need this person, I need this person, and this person. And if I have those people, I'm good. Yeah. Well, secondary is, I could shoot it with this, or this, but I need that person, because I know I'll be able to do my job as a director, and I won't have to be concerned about my cinematography because I got Dan Rubottom on the job, you know, or whoever I got on, and that's going to be perfect. It's not a worry in my mind. It's going to be beautiful. Or, you know, whatever position I got, somebody running audio, it's going to be clean. I know it is, you know. So I love that you said that. I love that you talked about the value. I mean, I'm always people over the stuff.
You know, I think in coming from a different industry, not coming from this industry, one of the questions that I would ask in the other industry is like, can you do the job? Not like, do I like you, or how do you see, or what's your take on it? It was like, can you do the job? Right? If you can do the job and you're proficient at the job and you do well at it, great, you're hired, you stay, you're good. In this industry, I can't say, can you shoot with a camera? Because yes, you could. But are you going to capture the shot that I need? And are you going to be able to see the vision in which I have and that I articulate to you? And then not only that, I worked with a cinematographer on a short film, and we just talked, storyboarded, did everything together. He's so great. His name's Chris, and I could just turn him loose with the camera.
Yeah.
Like I knew he was going to do better than even me trying to set up the shot. Like I just told him in generality, this is what I have to capture of the story. Like this is the heart of what I'm trying to get in this particular scene of this. And he would just go off with the camera and he would shoot all kinds of things and come back, and inevitably it was exactly what, I wanted. Now, I could have gave that camera to somebody else and went out and been like, what did you shoot?
Right.
Like, nothing of what I just said.
Totally.
So it is working with people that you can see the same with. And I think every project's different. Some people can master documentaries. Some people can master narratives. Some people can master, and some can master them all. But there are niches I've noticed in creativity of certain people, the way they deliver that.
Well, that's why you got those duos even in Hollywood. You have the Ron Howard, Brian Grazer, because they work great. Director-producer teams, they know each other's flow. They love that flow. Maybe they'll change out cinematographers based on the thing they're shooting because of the stylistically or what they're known, things like that. But man, you're right. I mean that flow is important. I mean, I don't know how's that for you?
Yeah, you have to build a team, if you're gonna do anything here. And I do have a pretty dope team now. People that I've kind of grew up with me, understand my style.
Yeah.
People will ask me, "Oh, can you recommend ACs?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I'll recommend them, but they're doing like they're learning how I do stuff, and the way I do stuff isn't how the industry does stuff. I can do that world, but I just I refuse to in many ways, just in terms of I don't like shooting 12-hour days. I mean, I'm always been an old man at heart. I get tired, I get hungry, so I don't want to be on set for 12 hours. I mean, I'm cool with half the people there, but I don't want to see your face for 12 hours. That's the reality,
Mandatory snack breaks.
Nor do I want to force you to see my face for 12 hours. I think of all those things, and I build. It's a very it's a very, when you find the team, they're going to have your same ethics, same morals. They're going to understand what you're trying to achieve. You're going to make sure they make money and they do well. You're going to take care of them, and they're going to come back, not because you're feeding them well or any of that. It's just more because you're making them feel like they're necessary, and they are.
Right.
They're a necessity in your thing. Like you said, they made themselves valuable. By saying like, hey, where are the holes in your production and how can I fill them? And they're executing it, and even if they mess up, once again, you're forgiving it, and if they mess up again, then it's like, hey, no problem, bro. Like, have fun, on your sets and do you, but no worries. So having the right people. My brother's, someone that he was doing theater before I was like, bro, you're doing theater, you're doing acting and all that. Why aren't you like helping me, do this? And he tells everyone, they're like, how'd you get started? He goes, nepotism, It's just straight up. He's like, yeah, my brother was like, you're my brother, theater, like come through. And I was like, that's how it started. And we've been, we just did a really dope documentary, 4-part series for Discovery Plus, and that should be releasing sometime in the summer. It's great. Whenever the merger of Discovery Plus Warner Brother happens, this will be one of the ones that gets released. And he was the gaffer for that. He did all that with me. He went to South Africa with me. We went and filmed a bunch of cool stuff out there too for Discovery. We actually faked Texas and South Africa.
I can do that.
For fake Texas. Okay. It was great.
Right.
So, but the thing is that that bond. Of course, he understands my jokes. We had the same mom, so we understand each other. We know when we're like tired. Like, we got to wrap this up. Let's do.
He's done. He's done. I can tell he's done.
Let's get. He can be my blocker for when people try to get too talkative with me or whatever, and they know that my mind is like on getting things done. And then he's also directed, the last feature we did, he directed, and I DP'd it, I EP'd it too. So I made sure that everything was taken care of, for him and for myself. And you have to find the right people. And then everyone else that's, the first AC and editors and people that have been helping me out, they have been with me for the past 4 years now. And, yeah, it's kind of hard to like. It would be pretty hard to see a production without some of these people.
Sure. How about this production? Did we get to hear anything about what this thing
Yeah.
they just shot? Like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the one we just filmed a project called Fight Boy. It's a mixed. I think the easiest explanation for it is like Friday. So Friday with Ice Cube and all them, mixed with like Scott Pilgrim.
cool.
So
Debo,
yeah, like
he's
Debo,
a dear
yeah.
friend of mine actually for a lot of
Really?
years. Yeah, God
Wow,
rest his
that's
soul.
awesome. Yeah. R.I.P.
Yep.
He pretty much we took this Texas Mutual Combat Law. If you've ever heard of it, it's
No.
all right. So the Texas Mutual Combat Law is that if you want to fight somebody, you can legally have a cop come and you can watch them fight.
Oh,
And
I think I did know about this.
they're
I
very-
did not
very
let
well
a lot
known.
of people in my life know that.
In
It's the whole
Austin,
thing there.
This always comes back around whenever South by Southwest is around
Yes.
because on 6th Street and all that stuff, there's always fights
Yep.
and there's always a cop just watching a fight, making sure there's no serious bodily injury or property damage.
Sure.
What's it called again?
The Texas Mutual Combat Law.
Texas Mutual
Combat Law.
All right.
Yeah,
I think we should be promoting this,
No,
Kelly.
no. No.
well, the film will definitely promote it.
Oh, no.
But the film is built for that market of
Yeah.
Friday and that kind of stuff, and
something that should play
it's-
on Vice.
yeah, it's a comedy, and
Okay.
it's a comedy mixed with action, and it's just meant to be dumb and fun.
Yeah.
Funny.
And we're ultimately the idea for this feature was, can we make a film for $50,000? And then also the other limitation was 6 to 8 hour days, only in 10 days.
Can you
wow.
make a film in 10 days for $50,000?
We did, and so we're currently in post production.
That's half days.
Yeah, those are
Basically.
6 to 8 hour
Half
days.
day.
So
Yeah.
that's basically like making it
Four
in half
days.
the
5
time
days,
in like
yes,
5
yeah.
days.
So
Yeah.
we did that. Only
running
one day we
matches.
ran over, and that was 10 hours. Every other day we got done early. People were still hanging around. We're like, go home, go sleep, get your full 8.
Yeah.
Go do your laundry, go have life.
Yeah.
Wow.
And come back. And it was just awesome because everyone came in, guns
Refreshed.
blazing, just
Yeah.
knocking stuff out. And yeah, there's that kind of messes us up in certain things. Like, you kind of wish you had a little more time, but we had to be very decisive and
efficient in
and
what you were
efficient
doing.
on,
Yeah.
hey, we know we're cutting this. So
Yeah.
get this angle and we're going to live with that angle. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
And then we're at the editing bay. We're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Living with that. But
Wow.
we just wanted to see if it was possible.
Okay.
And we saw that it is. So that's what this film will be.
Cool.
And it's not going to look like a $50,000 film. Yeah, it looks way more expensive than that. But and it's going to have an original score, which is crazy, and it's going to have
Oh, wow.
sound and Foley and all that stuff. And it's insane what you can do now.
Man, good
you know?
job, man.
So,
Good job.
Okay, so I have a big question for that. So that's production days,
Uh-huh.
like active production. How much pre-production did you do to just really, really? I mean, that in my opinion, a
Yeah.
lot of pre-production had to be really thought out and also experienced to be able to do what you did.
So the first thing I did was I found a very competent producer, which is my friend Marius Gloving, and he's the production coordinator for Cobra Kai. He was actually a intern for us when we did our first film called Journey, which we actually just submitted and will be distributed in the next month and a half. Just submitted it; it'll be out on Tubi, and definitely love to show that trailer.
Yeah.
But he was an intern on that one, and 7 years later, he was like, a couple years through that, he was like, "Hey, I'm about to graduate. What should I do?" I'm like, "Get out of Houston." That's what I told him. And normally I'm not like that, but I was like,
Yeah.
"Yo, you need to go," and because he didn't have things holding him back, and
Right.
he didn't have, his family also they travel a lot, and all that. I was like, "Bro, do it."
Yeah.
He went, started as an office PA, moved into, now he's production coordinating Cobra Kai,
Wow.
which is awesome. So I was
Wow.
like, "Hey, I cannot do this film without you. So
Yeah.
are you good?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm good." I brought him over about a month before, and that was the pre-production we're going to do. I got green lit for like a $250,000 job for EA. And I was like, I kind of need you to help me on this instead.
Oh no.
So then I cut another 2 weeks of pre-production, and we immediately went into pre-production for that job. And we're hoping to finish that and go into production. I had 2 other producers helping in the behind the scenes for Fight Boy, and we're like a day away, and we're like, there's no way. So we pushed back another 2 weeks. And instead of shooting in November, we ended up shooting in December, or something like that. It was like October to November, one of those things. Yeah. And yeah, sure enough, we went back, and a lot of things had been done. We already had the cast. There had already been readings. There had been a lot of those things happening. My brother was able to take care of some of those things, but then shifted gears. Let's go make some money because we're about to lose a lot of it.
Yeah.
And then went into doing the narrative, and
wow.
We'll see if it comes out on time.
Cool, man. Wow.
That's awesome. We would love to see those trailers. We would love to. Listening, we'll have a lot of that in the description, and we may have some of it overlaid in the episode and stuff like that to see some of the work that you've done. It would be really great.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Thanks for sharing that with us, and excited to see that come out. Excited to hear your journey and all the places that you've been and things you've done. And what's the future for Orlando?
Well, ultimately, I don't want to be a cinematographer forever. That's not. I mean, a lot of people, to be very, very honest, to be known in the Academy Awards and all that stuff, you're doing that probably in your 60s. And
right.
A lot of the, top cinematographers and all them, they're probably about 10 years away from being out of the game. But it takes a library of work to get there. And ultimately, what I would love to do is produce, just show run stuff, produce more shows, be able to cultivate more young people to help them shoot, learn what it means to do, how the biggest problem just in general, and most cinematographers, especially in Houston, is that people don't know how to make one scene look like the other. So they're really good at making one thing good, and maybe they had a happy accident shooting at sunset.
Right.
But then you go to the interiors, you're like, this is a different movie.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's very important here, that people understand how to make it all congruent, how to make it clean and concise, and understanding that you're looking at something from a broader view, and giving it that kind of polished look all the way throughout. It's really hard to do. It's not simple, especially not for narrative or documentary, when you're shooting so many different days, different subjects, it's really hard. But if you get to that point and you start having that design and all that, then you can definitely do some damage, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So ultimately, that's what I want. I want to be able to find those talented people with cool stories, and then we can come in, and wherever they can't do, I can just step in and fix it and move into the next realm. So I mean, I would love to produce and be able to show run and produce more projects. But I mean, we have like 20 something scripts ourselves, so we're probably gonna be producing a lot of our own stuff. But I love telling stories, that's the way it's, I was born, with, just having, a lot of stories passed down and things like that. So I can only see myself doing that for the rest of my life, whether it's producing or anything else.
Sure.
And I think it's really cool that the majority of us in this industry love telling stories. And when I first got into the industry, it's like, oh, that's a movie, that's a movie, that's a movie,
Sure.
that's a movie. And then you come to realize that's just a cool story.
Yeah.
That's maybe not a movie.
Right.
And then everybody starts telling you, oh, this is a movie, this is a movie, this is a movie, this is a movie. And you're like, yeah, that's a cool story.
Yeah.
It's really figuring out, what is a good story for television, what is a good documentary, what is a good theatrical release,
Sure.
what story makes what content,
Right.
really.
Right.
There's great stories, but it'd make a better book, or there's great stories, but it'd make a better play. Make great stories, but to have something visual enough,
to do that. And, a lot of great movies that we've seen come from books. But it is so different when you bring that book to life. When you're talking about that book being visual, you have to have the liberty to change some of it, because you got to be able to develop that, visually. Yeah. And I think that gets hung up. I think there's a lot of great books that could have become great films, but they just wouldn't let go of it enough to allow it to be the film.
Right.
Yep.
And I tell people to just save those stories, because you never know where that
That's true.
that one little story could fit in on a scene.
That's right.
Yes.
And that's what's happened. Like Fight Boy literally is the reason why we could write that script so quickly. For we're like, okay, 50 grand, can't go above, can't go beyond.
Right.
Yeah.
No rainy days, no
Right.
day to night stuff. Like we have to figure this out, right?
Yep.
Right.
But all those limitations was that we had already a catalog of other scripts that were like, do we really want to take this killer moment and throw it into this film? We're like, yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah.
And boom, and we're just like, so there's a lot of cool stuff that you can take, little stories that you hear about, and just throw it into it. And then it has its purpose. And that's the biggest thing, is that, doing things with purpose is super important. And, but yeah, that's the way that I've seen it. And it's worked out for us so far, but hopefully, even after this, hopefully the films are successful, and success is very, I'm not hoping to be a bajillionaire out of it. Right. But I'm hoping that it does open up even more doors for us to just keep
at least a
producing
cajillionaire, though.
A cajillion would be sick.
Yeah,
though.
That's right.
I'll take
That's
that.
right. Well, we could talk for days. We just appreciate you so much and all you're doing. And check him out. Go to Filmatic. Go support his films. Go look at his trailers and all that we're going to put here, and support everything that you do. And we appreciate you coming and sitting with us and sharing. And we look forward to visiting with you again. We look forward to catching one of your workshops.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
amazing. If you are out there and wanting to learn, here's your opportunity. Seize that opportunity. We talk about a lot about that on this podcast, is, taking opportunities that present themselves. So this is a great opportunity to partner with Orlando. So thank you so much for being
guys.
here.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
A beautiful studio, by the way. Just so you know.
Thank
really
you.
nice.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
Thank you so
when you
much.
go to one of their workshops, it's inspiring just to be in y'all's space too. I love it. It's
appreciate it.
creative. I love it.
Yes.
That's kind of what we vibe on even around here. We love spaces that inspire us. So.
Yeah, for sure. So until next time, we'll see you on Set Life.